The biggest mistake most people make isn't failing. It's constantly starting over. Every time life gets difficult, we convince ourselves that the answer is a new plan, a new direction, or a fresh start. We tell ourselves that maybe this time will be different. But what if that's exactly what's keeping us where we are? What if the thing standing between the life you have today and the life you've been chasing isn't more talent, more money, or better opportunities? What if you've simply never stayed with one thing long enough to discover what you're actually capable of? So let me ask you something. What would happen if, for the next 6 months, you didn't start over? You didn't quit the moment it stopped being exciting. You simply stayed. Because maybe the life you've been trying to build isn't as far away as you think. Maybe you've just never given yourself enough time to reach it. The strange thing is that almost everyone loves the beginning. The beginning is exciting because it's filled with possibility. It's the moment where we believe everything is about to change. We picture the future, imagine the person we're about to become, and convince ourselves that this is finally the fresh start we've been waiting for. But eventually that feeling fades. Not because the goals stopped matching, and not because the dream suddenly became impossible, but because the work became ordinary. It stopped giving us the excitement it gave us on the first day. The routine became repetitive, the progress became harder to notice, and we started wondering whether we were wasting our time. That's usually where the questions begin. Is this really working? Am I doing the right thing? Should I try something else instead? What's interesting is that we rarely question our patience. We question the goal. Instead of wondering whether we simply need more time, we convince ourselves we've chosen the wrong path. So we leave. We start over, believing we're making a smart decision, without realizing we're resetting the very progress we had already begun. Then we repeat the same cycle again. We become addicted to new beginnings because beginnings feel exciting, while consistency feels ordinary. We chase that feeling over and over again, never noticing that every fresh start takes us back to the place we were trying so hard to leave. The hardest part has never been starting. Starting is exciting. Anyone can feel motivated when something is new. The hardest part is continuing after the excitement disappears, because that's the moment where consistency actually begins. And consistency is rarely exciting. Most days don't feel life-changing. They feel ordinary. You wake up, do the work, go home, and it feels like nothing has changed. The next day feels exactly the same, and the day after that doesn't feel much different either. It's easy to look at those days and believe you're standing still. But what if that's the biggest misunderstanding of all? What if the reason progress feels invisible is because real progress almost always is? You don't become better because of one incredible day. You become better because of hundreds of ordinary days that, on their own, never seemed important. And that's exactly why so many people never discover what they're capable of. They leave while the progress is still invisible. They mistake slow progress for no progress, when in reality, they were closer than they ever realized. The problem is, we've been taught to expect progress to look dramatic. We expect to wake up one morning and suddenly feel more confident, more successful, more skilled than we were the day before. But that's almost never how growth works. Real progress is frustrating because it hides from you. It happens quietly, without asking for attention. You don't notice it while you're living it. You only notice it when you stop long enough to look back. That's why so many people leave too early. They assume that because they can't see a difference today, nothing is changing at all. Think about how many times you've walked away from something, not because you knew it couldn't work, but because you convinced yourself it wasn't working fast enough. There's a difference. Most people don't quit because they've reached the end of the road. They quit because they become uncomfortable with how long the road feels. They keep waiting for a moment that tells them, keep going, it's working. When that moment doesn't come quickly enough, they decide to find another path instead. The strange part is that every new beginning asks you for the same thing, your time. Every goal demands patience before it gives you anything in return. But instead of giving one path enough time to reward us, we keep moving from one thing to the next, hoping the next one will somehow produce results faster than the last. It almost never does. Every time you start over, you're not just starting something new. You're also walking away from everything your previous effort could have become if you had stayed with it a little longer. And maybe that's the hardest truth to accept. The person you've been trying to become has never been built by moments of motivation. They're built by the ordinary days you keep showing up, especially when nothing feels different. Those ordinary days don't feel important while you're living them. They feel forgettable. They feel repetitive. But they're quietly shaping you in ways you can't measure yet. People aren't usually held back by a lack of potential. They're held back by never staying in one place long enough to discover what they're actually capable of. Read that again in your mind for a second. Because if that's true, then maybe the question was never whether you were capable. Maybe the real question has always been whether you've ever given yourself enough time to find out. Imagine if, just once, you stayed. Not because every day felt exciting, and not because you suddenly became more disciplined than everyone else, but because, for the first time, you stopped looking for another beginning and gave one path enough time to grow. At first, nothing would seem different. That's the part nobody likes hearing. You wouldn't wake up after a few weeks feeling like a completely different person, and you wouldn't suddenly become successful just because some time had passed. Most days would feel ordinary. You'd still question yourself. You'd still wonder whether all the effort was worth it. But while it looked like nothing was changing, something actually was. The first thing that changes isn't your bank account, your career, or even your results. It's the relationship you have with yourself. Every day you choose not to quit becomes proof that you can keep your word. You stop relying on motivation because you've realized motivation comes and goes. What keeps you moving is something much stronger, the decision you made to stay. Without even noticing it, you stop becoming someone who constantly talks about changing their life and become someone who's actually changing it. Then something else begins to happen. The time you used to spend searching for better ideas, better opportunities, or another fresh start is now spent getting better at the one thing you've already chosen. Instead of resetting your progress every few weeks, you finally allow it to build. One day doesn't make much of a difference, but days become weeks, weeks become months, and those small efforts begin stacking on top of each other. That's when progress stops being something you hope for and starts becoming something you can actually see. This is the part most people never experience. They leave before the work begins to work. They leave before the habits become natural. They leave before the small improvements have enough time to become obvious. They spend years believing they haven't found the right opportunity, when the truth is they never stayed anywhere long enough to discover what they were capable of. Maybe that's what locking in for 6 months really means. It isn't about working every hour of the day or becoming obsessed with success. It's about making one decision and respecting it long enough to see where it leads. It's about refusing to interrupt your own progress every time things become uncomfortable. By the end of those 6 months, your life may not be perfect, and you may still have goals you haven't reached. But you'll have something far more valuable. You'll know what it feels like to trust yourself again. 6 months from now will arrive whether you use them or not. Time isn't waiting for you to feel ready. It's moving either way. The only question is this: when those 6 months are over, will you be looking back at another chapter of planning, waiting, and starting over? Or will you be looking back at the 6 months that finally showed you what you're actually capable of? Because maybe the greatest reward isn't becoming successful. Maybe it's becoming someone who no longer has to wonder what could have happened if they had simply stayed. Maybe that's what locking in for 6 months really means. It isn't about becoming rich, becoming famous, or proving everyone else wrong. Those things may come, or they may not. The real reward is much quieter than that. It's waking up one day and realizing you finally became the person who keeps their word. The person who no longer needs a new beginning every few weeks. The person who stopped waiting for motivation and started trusting consistency instead. Most people spend years searching for the perfect opportunity, convinced that the next idea, the next business, or the next plan will finally change everything. But maybe the opportunity was never the problem. Maybe the problem was never giving yourself enough time to become great at anything. Because every time you start over, you're not just beginning again. You're walking away from the person you were slowly becoming. 6 months from now, life will keep moving exactly as it always has. The days will pass. The weeks will pass. Before you know it, another 6 months will be behind you. The only thing you get to decide is who you'll be when that day arrives. Will you be looking back at another 6 months of thinking, planning, and promising yourself that you'll start tomorrow? Or will you be looking back at the 6 months where you finally stopped chasing another beginning and committed to seeing one journey through? Maybe that's the question we've been asking the wrong way all along. Instead of asking, what happens if I lock in for 6 months? Maybe the better question is, what happens if I don't? Because doing nothing has a cost. Constantly starting over has a cost. Waiting for the perfect time has a cost. And one day, You'll wake up to realize that another 6 months have gone by, and time has quietly collected that price. So if these next 6 months are going to pass anyway, and they will, why not spend them becoming someone your future self will thank you for? Not because it'll be easy, not because you'll enjoy every day, but because 6 months from now, you'll either be grateful that you stayed or you'll be wishing you had. If you enjoyed this conversation, let me know in the comments. What's the one thing you're committing to for the next 6 months? I'd genuinely love to read your answers. And if you enjoy these kinds of conversations, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.